Welcome everyone. If you've wondered what is expected of me as a new product manager or what the heck do PMs even do, then stay tuned because I'm going to demystify what it is to be a product manager. This video is for you freshly minted PMs or folks looking to jump into the role, usually from an adjacent job. If you haven't already watched part 1, this is a 2-part video, and in part 1 I covered what skills you'll need as a product manager and how to transition into product management from other roles. So if you haven't seen it already, check it out in the link down below. In this part 2 video, I'm going to cover what you're going to do as a product manager in your day-to-day job and what makes it so challenging to become a PM. Hi, I'm Garrett Risco and welcome to the channel Risky Business, where I teach you what tactics product managers use behind the scenes to build the best products out there. So what do product managers even do? Netflix's former vice president of product management, Gibson Biddle, he said that product managers aim to create products that delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And product managers do this by defining the who, the what, the when, and most importantly, the why of a product. The who is all about being able to define and understand the segmentation of your customers, or who's even buying your product. For example, if you're the product manager for the Yeti cooler, you have a customer segment that's the hardcore fisherman. You also have a customer segment that's the hardcore outdoorsy hunter. And you have a third customer segment that's the mass market outdoorsy person that wants to buy a lifestyle product. So then after defining your segments as that Yeti product manager, you'll then detail each of your personas, what their day-to-day is, and what their pain points are. The goal of defining the who is it lets you figure out the what. The what is what features you're gonna build that are high value and hit each of those pain points for your target customer. For example, for that Yeti cooler, it could be a rugged build for overlanding or a UV resistant roto-molded plastic so it can be used for long hours outdoors. And next it leads into the when. The when is you need to be able to ship your product when the market's ready for it. Lots of products have failed because they launch way ahead of their time, like Google Glass or the Apple Newton come to mind as flops that shipped way too soon. And others failed because they shipped way too late into a mature market, like the Windows Phone. And lastly, and most importantly, you need to be able to define the why for your product. This is all about using data-driven approaches to ensure your product is valuable enough for people to pay for it, sign up, and make the switch. For example, take the recent huge flop Quibi or QuickBytes, the mobile-only content streaming platform that launched in April in the midst of the illness. It failed to differentiate and provide content that people wanted to watch. In my opinion, they didn't answer the why for their end users. You can't stream to your TV, you can only stream to your mobile. They missed out on that whole segment of users. Their business model prevented people from easily signing up. They have you pay for the service, and in the current world of YouTube, TikTok, IGTV, we're flush with free services that are easy to get users signed up and hooked. And that quality content was actually like mediocre offcuts and B-sides that couldn't make it to the larger studios. And lastly, they made it hard to share and screenshot, so you couldn't share or create those viral moments with your friends. This was all done in an attempt to keep content behind a paywall instead of using ads for monetizing their platform like many others do. And finally, once you have the who, the what, the when, and the why of your product, you'll need to be able to prove out your idea to many people both internally and externally to validate that your idea is on the right track and to get people on the same page. This will further refine and drive your direction, and I'll be covering a lot more of this in a future episode on being able to lead without authority. Now, this is a good high-level look at your role as a product manager, but of course the day-to-day will vary a lot depending on the level that you're at. If you're a senior PM owning a product line versus a director of product management owning a whole portfolio and driving the strategy, and I'm going to be covering those various different levels and what their responsibilities are in a future video as well. So what is that key responsibility for a product manager? Marty Kagan said it best that the goal for any product is to avoid the 4 risks. The value risk, or will people buy and be delighted by the product? The usability risk, or can people figure out how to use the product? The feasibility risk, or can the product be built with the time, skills, and technology that we have? And lastly, the business viability risk, or does this make sense for our business and our financial goals? Now, 2 of those are already covered because the role of UX, among many other things that they do, is to cover the usability risk. The role of the engineering teams, among many others, is to own the feasibility risk. And lastly, the role of the product manager is to own the value and the business viability risk. You as a product manager should be ensuring that you're building the right thing for your customer and for your business. In some sense, and this is very cliche, you're the CEO of the product, but I prefer to hold the mentality that you should also be nimble if you need to kill it as well. You need to be married to the customer's problem, but not the product itself. That's why you see so many startups pivot. Like Slack, for example, started as a video game platform called Glitch by Stuart Butterfield. And Mr. Butterfield isn't the traditional video gamer, but he's more of a fan of the communal board and card games, and he wanted to bring that sense of community into video games. And in the process of creating the game Glitch and failing to capture the growth numbers that they need to survive, they actually made 15 pivots before deciding to close up shop. And even after closing up shop, they still had $3 million left in the bank and decided to throw a complete Hail Mary and start looking at their own internal game engine components on something that they could cannibalize and maybe turn into a product. They actually found the internal communications engine part of their product, and that communal aspect that Stuart had grown up to enjoy actually had legs. They went from 45 employees making Glitch down to just 4 developers to create what is now known as Slack, on an internal tool that they'd spent 3 years building as part of their game. And the rest is history, with Slack boasting a $16 million market cap as of last week. And I would say Reid Hoffman said it best: if you're not embarrassed by your product, you shipped way too late. This exemplifies the importance of getting something out as quickly as possible to get feedback on your product, and it's more important to get something out the door than to wait for this golden goose of a product to be created. So what are those day-to-day tasks that a product manager does? Product managers generally have one foot in what needs to be built, while the other foot is making sure that the engineering team is working on what's currently on track. Assuming that your team works in an agile environment, any week is usually filled with either status meetings of current projects and addressing any roadblocks or challenges. You could be looking at the backlog and identifying the next features to be worked on by the engineering team. You could be defining the business case or identifying customer value through A/B testing. You could be doing beta programs or having other feedback mechanisms to get customer feedback. You could be analyzing competition and market trends. You might be working with your engineering team to see what can be worked on and delivered in the next sprint based off of value effort matrix that I talked about previously, so check out down below for that video on prioritizing your product. You could be working with your UX or your support organization to ensure your long-term product KPIs or key performance indicators are being met, and you are addressing any major feedback or issues faced by customers. You might be working with your documentation and marketing team to ensure that the feature or the product that you're working on is properly positioned and being messaged to customers. And lastly, you might be exploring long-term strategic investments like partnerships or hackathons, which can give your product an unfair advantage. It's also important to remember that product management roles vary by company based off the org structure. Most tech companies typically tend to have product and engineering reporting into the same single general manager, since the teams need to collaborate very closely in order to deliver innovative products. However, in more fast-moving consumer goods companies and automotive industries, and sometimes other marketing-heavy organizations, products usually report into the marketing team, since those industries are more driven by the voice of the customers than they are technology. And even within product management, there's also a concept of inbound and outbound product managers. Inbound roles are usually more internally focused, where they're usually owners of the product development process, working really closely with engineering, UX, documentation, with some organizations also having the PM play the Scrum Master role for the engineering team. These roles are also known as product owners or technical product owners, whereas those outbound product manager roles are more externally focused, and they tend to work on gathering customer requirements, defining the business and market needs, doing competitive and market analysis. They'd be understanding pricing and packaging. They might also be working with their engineering, UX, documentation, marketing, legal teams. And in this case, they're usually part of, but not the owner of the product development process. Usually in this cases of an outbound product manager, these PMs are usually the owner of the profitability of the product and are much more business focused. So you also heard me mention a couple different roles before, specifically program management and project management. So what the heck are those? Well, outside of companies like Microsoft, where they do call their product managers program managers, in most organizations, program managers are responsible to drive cross-functional programs. For example, a beta program for Android is a fairly complex initiative involving multiple different engineering teams and multiple product managers. A program manager is usually in charge of ensuring that the right feedback is provided for the right teams and that the betas are sent to the right partners like Samsung or Lenovo. Whereas a project manager is much more concerned and responsible for the delivery of the project, including its timeline, its risks, and its dependencies. So for example, if you're collaborating with a partner on a joint project or with another business unit which has multiple stakeholders involved, a project manager is usually needed to track all the deliverables and make sure that they're on time. You'll often find a PMP certification is usually useful for this field. Even Scrum Masters need project management skills. So if you want to be an inbound PM or product owner, Project management is a great place to start to break into that role. So why is it so hard to become a product manager? Product managers play a critical role in the organization. PMs are usually the shepherds or the gatekeepers of what a project team is working on at all times, and they make sure everything has the right priority. They also provide the necessary oversight from a customer perspective within the company. At every step, they want to make sure that the customer will be delighted with what your teams are building. It's a critical function, and given how many engineering teams a product manager manages, they may be indirectly responsible for the efforts of around 30 to 40 engineering individuals. This, combined with the fact that they have a very small margin for error when it comes to making mistakes, they can make or break millions of dollars of investment and make this role a risky investment for companies. This is why PMs are so highly paid and why they have a wide variety of folks coming in to interview the candidates, since they impact so many members of the team and are crucial for the success of the product. So if you're looking to be that next accidental product manager, focus on being that unicorn that amazes people with your design, technical, business, and domain knowledge. And in proper YouTube fashion, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the video, and comment down below with any questions you want me to answer. Hit the bell to follow and get notified of new content where I break down industry expertise, PM best practices, day-to-day ways to excel in the role, and some behind-the-scenes secrets on how some of the top companies make the best products out there. And of course, stay tuned for next week or maybe next week for another episode. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next time.